This is going to be a review of Phase 1 of Classic World of Warcraft Season of Discovery. It's kind of a spur of the moment video. As you can see, we have paint open, and I thought I'd do a little tier list of sorts of all the new mechanics and things they've added into Season of Discovery before we move into Phase 2. There's not going to be much editing, it's just going to be me talking. It's probably going to be pretty boring. You're crazy if you watch this through. Think of this video like the Yelp comment, like the Google review on the McDonald's on the highway, where someone just came in with a 4-paragraph essay about why that McDonald's deserves a 1-star review because of how they got treated. So it's like, it's not that serious, bro. It's not that serious. And yeah, let's get into it. So here in the red on the right side, we're going to put, these are problems in the red. These are things that I just think are just bad. Needs a fix. Was a bad idea. Went really poorly. Next, we're going to have the kind of bad territory around here. I know we could just use a tier list maker and do like a tier list that's already made, but we're doing it my own way. Here we got things that are just mid, you know, take it or leave it. Some good parts, some bad parts. Some things that are a bit disappointing, but not necessarily the worst. Then we'll have the things that are just okay. Right here. And then all the way in the green, we got good job, Blizz. The very rare good job, Blizz. We'll see if anything even makes it over there. Alright. So, I've played Season of Discovery a decent amount. Did pretty much, every piece of new content. Got 3 characters to max. Did some raid leading. But it didn't take long until I basically had nothing to do but raid log. My opinion of Season of Discovery has been extremely back and forth between this is okay, this is great, and this is just lame, depressing. Like, definitely my first character, my initial experience 1 to 25 was pretty great. I thought on launch, first week, really crazy fun. I was in that honeymoon phase. I had fun thinking about the game, theory crafted my build when I wasn't logged on. I think you're pretty much going to expect that from every World of Warcraft and launch in the first week, assuming you can actually log in. But one thing I'd like to add, if you were thinking of playing Season of Discovery but never did, I saw a lot of people saying before Season of Discovery came out, why even play? They're hardly adding anything. It's just, one raid and 1 PvP event. But really, it doesn't feel like Classic. It feels like an entirely new game. Yes, there's not much added things to do, but the runes, the abilities you have in your kit are the lens in which you view almost every activity in the game that you do. So pretty much everything you're doing feels new to me. So if that's what was keeping you away, I would say give it a try, see if you like it. And then also, before we begin placing things on the list, I would like to say some props to the SOD team, because many of the glaring problems that I had jotted down as, things that were bothering me or what have you, actually ended up getting fixed in patches, sometimes pretty fast. Things like bleeds that were working on bleed immune targets, not being able to turn in the Battle for Ashenvale quest during the same event before they added the turn in NPCs. Blade Dance parry for rogues being not a flat 10% parry in the Horde Hunter aspects and such. Let's get into the actual tier list, okay? So the first thing to talk about is the launch. Let me actually grab an image to represent this. Let's get this down here. Great quality there. Give it a little border. Alright. To launch, after day 1, there was pretty much no queues, little to no server lag. They very, very quickly opened up a new RP PvP realm in NA when Crusader Strike was swamped out of the gate. Props for that. Compared to Fairlina in 2019, when it was pretty much bricked for literally forever. Like, almost impossible to play on Fairlina. And they did a pretty good job with this launch. Right out the gate, first one with a good job, Blaze. I didn't expect this. We'll see if anything else goes there. Second thing, and I think, probably the most important thing to talk about would be the runes. Some things about this is this, in the problem area. Some things I do like. To go right in the middle. Put them in mid. Grab an icon for that real quick. Looking good. Look at that, it's so clean. So, in terms of acquiring the runes, I think some ways you acquired them was actually cool. Like, for the Warlock rune for meta, they made it this huge, grand quest line, basically. Farming elites with a group outside of Black Fathom Depths, farming huge elite demons in Ashenvale. Just getting a group and killing elites out in the world is always cool. Almost like an outdoor dungeon in a way. Ignoring how much of getting the meta rune was walking through the Barrens. If you're Alliance, man, it was just walking through the Barrens to get that over and over again. But yeah, a lot of the runes were kind of like a class quest in a way, which I love. Everybody loves. The class quests are one of the best things about Classic. The runes that could have been a class quest, I think, that's some of the best part about the runes. And looking up, not discovering for myself. In the first week, looking up, how I was going to get my next rune, where I was going to get it. And waiting for other people to tell me how to do it. That was fun. But man, some ways you acquired runes was really annoying. Instantly what comes to mind is the rogue. Where is it? Deadly Brew. I mean, the amount of travel you had to do for this as an Alliance, getting to SFK, and then having to go all the way to Stone Talon, like the furthest possible place, on foot, and then all the way back to SFK, and then, doing the actual sneak mission inside of SFK was easily one of the coolest things they've added. Awesome. But then as soon as you're done with the SFK part as Alliance, I get that traveling all over the world, taking a 30-minute trip is part of Classic in a way. I mean, it's definitely part of Classic. But just turning in, if you're a rogue, if you're an Alliance rogue, you definitely know. Turning in the SFK rune into the chest just for you to have to go back to Ironforge for them to mail you, so that when you go back to the chest you were just at all the way in SFK, that it'll actually spawn in the chest. Not to mention it mails you 5 copies at a time because it's bugged. I mean, just they could have just spawned the rune in the chest when you finish it, instead of making you go back to a major city and then walk all the way from South Shore all the way to SFK. I mean, I was seething at that point. It was so annoying. So many of the Warlock runes were just buying them for gold. Straight up. The Paladin rune at level 2 requires a level 4 ability for you to even get it. They could have just not made it be gotten that way. Things with specific runes like Penance, even though they added cast bars. Penance never has a cast bar, which is annoying for PvP. There's no Victory Rush buff. In other iterations of the game, when you have Victory Rush, you see how much longer you have it till it runs out, which is very important for min-maxing, your leveling journey or whatever, or your DPS, which is kind of many people's favorite part. Back to Penance, priests never really go because Penance is such a big heal with such a low mana cost that, if they're before you're able to kill them, they get a tick of mana back. Now they can Penance again back to full. Their new dot does more damage than Shadow Word Pain for way less mana. The way mana works in general is just completely changing with the runes. I've had priest healers in dungeons and they never had to take a minute to sit down and drink. Not once. One thing that I think a lot of people also had a problem with is how hard it was to actually be able to play your new tank specs, for Warlocks and Rogues and such. Basically, by the time you're ready to tank on Warlock or Rogue, you're already level 25, which means a lot of the dungeoning you were going to do, you've already done. It's not hard to get pre-base. You don't have to do that much dungeon spamming. I mean, most of your pre-base are literally greens that you can buy off the auction house. I understand that like meta is a super cool, like striking ability that they wanted to, be hard to get for like an epic reward. But it's just annoying if you rolled a warlock to be able to play tank warlock, and then maybe half the time you were gonna play Season of Discovery, you didn't even get to tank. I literally rolled a rogue as my main to play tank rogue, and I wasn't able to do it a single time until far into me being level 25 when they changed the rep requirement for the boxes for it. If it's a new spec, you should be able to play it as soon as you get level 10 and you choose your spec, basically. I do like, in theory, how some of the runes, had Horde stepping into Alliance zones. Some had Alliance stepping into Horde zones. It was more so Horde stepping into Alliance zones, but I do like that in theory as a world PvP enjoyer. Giving the Horde reason to go into zones that they never really had a reason to before. Making these altercations happen. I like that in theory, but in terms of the PvP balance, it was pretty annoying. We'll get into that later. I saw a lot of complaints about that, though. A lot of complaints about having to go to the opposite faction zones. I think, in theory, that could have been cool. And one of the biggest problems I have with runes, and the last thing we'll touch on, is that I haven't really heard people talk about, is for me in Classic when I'm leveling a character, one of the best parts is getting to that even level, that every second level, where you get to go train up your ability ranks. But the runes don't have ranks, and so you hardly have any reason at all to go back to town, during your journey. You can just keep on keeping on. I didn't need to train further Sinister Strikes. Basically, in many classes, as soon as you got your main runes, like, there's no real reason to go train your abilities. And then if you do train your abilities, half of them you won't use the ability, and you're not getting that power spike of having your new rank of your abilities. I think the runes having no rank was a huge misstep. My girlfriend, she's a Chaos Bolt Warlock. She incinerates, she Chaos Bolts. If she wanted, she could probably go 1 to 60 without training an ability from here. Everyone knows how good it feels when the mobs are taking kind of a long time to die. You're feeling weak. You're feeling like your mana sucks. You go to town. You come back. You have that new rank of Frostbolt. And then you're just, 3-shotting mobs. It's literally one of the most fun parts of leveling in Classic. You feel like an absolute powerhouse, like a menace out in the streets when you come back with your new ability ranks. So that's going to land runes right in mid. Like, man, I see a lot of problems. They're only getting mid instead of down here because acquiring the runes is pretty fun, which makes me think you could have had those same ways of acquiring rewards that weren't for runes. The runes itself, problem. Acquiring the runes, okay. The level cap. Where do we put the level cap? I like the level cap a lot. It gives this feeling of like this massive, incredibly dangerous world out there. And all these zones you can't go to yet. These mobs you walk past that you don't want to aggro on you, they'll fuck you up. I love seeing skull mobs around. The world having dangerous parts to it definitely adds to the feeling. And sometimes I was mining, and my wife was a warlock. Sometimes I'd come across, an iron vein. Iron was juicy stuff. I wanted to mine that, get that heavy stone. But, it was surrounded by skull level mobs. And she'd send in her Voidwalker for me to aggro all the pets and then start running with them while I swooped in for the mine, got it, ran away, sprinted, vanished, whatever. It was really fun. Like, it still takes longer to level 1 to 25 in Classic than it does to get, 1 to 70 in retail right now. So, which is max level in retail right now. So it still feels like you're kind of getting a full MMO experience in that way while leveling. It's cool, people finding ways to do the higher level dungeons, finding ways to solo dungeons for BIS loot. There was hunters soloing RFK for those shoulder pads, how level 60s learned to farm Princess, to farm the dagger for Mage or whatever, or to get the ring. The community learning ways to take on these challenges by themselves, and then also learning how to do them yourself was actually really fun. So big fan of level caps. If I was making the game myself, I would have done the same thing. the extra gold you got once you were capped from doing the quests, I felt like it was a good amount. Kept the quests rewarding. It funded your early raid prep well. But all that being said, the reason I don't think I'm going to do a good job, Liz, is I don't think they added enough content in the game for level 25 to be engaging. Like, I think it was just too fast to run out of stuff to do. If the level 25 cap was not the issue per se, but just they didn't add enough to do. So that's why I will be giving that just an okay. Alright. Next topic. This is a interesting one. The Waylaid Shipments. Let's grab an image for that. Okay. Here's what I will say about the Waylaid Shipments. I think it was a really good idea. Almost. When I first saw them, I thought, oh, this is genius. There's lots of items people make that when leveling their profession that get vendored because no one wants them. This is a good way for recipes that just get vendored to be used for something. Some recipes you never train, you never have made at one time because they're just bad items. Like they could put all those bad items in these shipments, give a use to crafting those items. Items that completely flood the market, overrun the market. This could be, a good way to offload maybe some more of those items. But I think that what I thought it was going to be like is not what it was like. In fact, I found the Waylaid Shipments extremely annoying. There were so many problems with it, and what it could have been a good idea just ended up really quite bad. Like, things like, so if you don't know how these work, you need to get some items, and then put them in the box, and then once you've filled the items it's asking for, then you can turn them in, and you get rep, and you get a little bit of money. And there's an item that you needed for one of the shipments, where they used an item that literally wasn't even in the game in phase 1, just an unavailable item. Go fill your shipment with this. They're unique. They were unique. I've just gotten weird while recording this video that they're gonna no longer be unique. Thank fucking God. They should have never been unique. It was super annoying. Anytime you find a chest out in the open world, you're like, ooh, a chest. Ooh, look, a cookie. You go up to the chest. Chest loot is always garbage, but we lie to ourselves that they're fun to loot. Could be a blue in there. We go to the chest. 9 out of 10 times you're opening a chest that is completely empty except for one shipment because whoever looted it last, they already had a shipment, so it was unique, so they couldn't pick up the shipment. It was just every chest sucked now. In the low levels they were overdropping. Like Waylaid Shipments drop like crazy. How many times did I see a mob glowing on the floor and I'm like, oh shit, I missed loot. Go back, walk all the way back to it, loot it. Oh, I spaced out. It was a Waylaid Shipment that I couldn't pick up. Sometimes multiple times in the same mob. That's partly my bad for being stupid, but it's just annoying. I feel like if from the get-go they were not unique and rarer than they are for a bigger reward, like much more rep at a time. That way it wouldn't flood your bags where you're holding all shipments because, the rewards you get for them, you get runes for them that you need. For example, Tank Rogue, you need the Tank Rogue rune from the shipments if you want to tank. Yeah, that'd be way better not having them be unique. And they got that feedback finally in phase 2 and are fixing it. But I think it's still going to be annoying if they keep their current drop rate because they're a valuable item and they drop like crazy the low levels. So when you're leveling a character, your bags might be 30 Waylaid Shipments and nothing else. And if it's your first character and all you have are 6 slots, like 2 6 slots, it's just going to be annoying. The reward for blacksmithing for doing the shipments for Alliance is some holy damage mail shoulders. Interesting item for paladins, sure. But Horde get it as well, so there's no reason to have holy damage at all on a mail item for Horde. It's just entirely useless item. I mean, the Horde blacksmith's got nothing. One of many, many oversights it feels like. Actually turning in the shipment, man, and one of the ones I got early on was for small bronze bombs. And I was like, ooh, this one's kind of hard to make. I put in 2 gold of mats to make the small bronze bombs. I think it was like 12 of them or something. And then I'm like, ooh, two gold of mats. I'm going to get such a huge payout. I'm going to get extra rep. They're going to give me like 3 gold. And then, no, the reward was 20 silver, which you're paying for the rep. Fine, I guess. But 20 silver was less than the vendor price of vendoring all the items. Like, the rewards aren't even more than the vendor prices sometimes. And then in terms of the rep itself, playing regularly, I've been every chest I get, unless I literally could not afford to fill it, I've been filling, turning in as soon as I get it, basically. Trying to get that rep up. Playing this whole time, I am only halfway through friendly, and originally it took honored to get the runes. So if they hadn't reduced it, I still, to this day, would not have been able to tank a single time on my rogue. I'm going to have to put these in kind of bad. Like I said, when I first read them, I saw potential, but it just went all wrong, if you ask me. Okay. Let's rate BFD itself. The new quote-unquote raid, which really was just a dungeon. Let me grab an image for this. There we go. That's a good one. Man, the BFD raid for me is just the definition of mid. I'll tell you right now. It's just mid, strong mid. There was no fights that were that fun. I mean, it's just a reworked dungeon we've all played many times. It just wasn't very fun to me. Didn't seem like my group members were ever having that much fun either. I was raid leading pugs multiple times per week. And I will say the reason it's getting mid and not kind of bad is I feel like for a classic raid, the balance was kind of there. After, nerfs to Kelris and stuff, I feel like it's super easy with pugs. All the time I brought in hunters in gray gear and greens without gear checking at all, without checking their parses. You're fucking cringe if you check their parses. I did plenty of 30-minute raids with people with gray and greens. So yeah, I'd say after the nerfs, the balance was pretty much for a classic raid where I'd want it, so props there. But yeah, just truly felt uninspired, unfun, really not worthy of being called a raid. And then kind of hand to hand with the raid is the new world buff. The boon of Black Fathom, as they say. Just now realizing the icon for the world buff is 3 Hydra heads. For some reason I thought it was like a red flask when I was looking at it small. Happens a lot with items when you see them closer up. The world buff. So I will say the movement speed from the world buff is pretty nice. I think that was a good idea for a patch where you didn't have a real mount. The move speed feels nice. Makes you feel the impact of the buff more when you have it every second. I would have had it in the problem area before them saying very recently that the world buff is going to cap at level 39. I mean, if you had to, at level 60 before a raid, go back through all these level up raids to get your world buffs, I mean, that would have been extremely annoying. But thank God it caps at level 39. That definitely is going to bump it up the tier list. One thing which I think is always fun with world buffs when you get them while leveling is it adds this kind of one life gameplay, like a mini hardcore experience where you really don't want to die and lose your buff while leveling. That also adds to the fun while raiding. But all that being said, I genuinely think it would be better if the buff dropped in every major city simultaneously instead of just in Darnassus for the Alliance, which is all I played. I didn't play Horde, sorry if some of these things I'm saying just completely don't apply to Horde. But I mean, going to and from Darnassus to do anything was so annoying to me. It's quite a journey to get there and get there from to Stormwind, which is where most stuff happens. And on characters, when I was trying to level through the Night Elf zone so that I was near where the world buff drops, there comes a point where you graduate from Darkshore and now you're in Ashenvale, and it's just completely unplayable leveling an alt through Ashenvale, just filled with raid gears 25, just ganking you. There was one time my girl and I were like level 20. There's that sleepy guy sleeping. You got to escort from Darkshore to Ashenvale. It's a long ass escort. We finally get to the end. We're meters from the end, and then a rogue just pops out and one hits both of us, inches from the finish line. Like, this motherfucker literally just sits there camped at the end of that, stealth at the end of that escort, killing people. And he proceeded to camp our bodies 5 times until we took a res sickness and just left Ashenvale. You're a big man for camping lobies, man. You're lucky I don't name drop you right here in front of all my fans. It's not just because I forgot your name. But fuck you. I'll just give the world buff an okay. I'm glad they added one. Also somewhat to do with the raid. Just the gearing in general through phase 1. The gearing, I mean, I said before it came out and was pretty much correct in that most of the pre-bis, and in some cases the bis is just BOEs, high roll greens, high level blue BOEs. The gearing from dungeons was pretty minimal. I mean, of course, if you want the cheaper options, you can get a lot of the gear from the dungeons, but if you're a gold buyer, walk up in that auction house, get pre-bis and bis extremely easily. I found lots of the raid loot to be annoying because they put those long ass 30-second dots on the items, which, I mean, traditionally that's items people avoid. Weapons that put those dots on people. It's super annoying if you're a rogue trying to CC people, if you're a warrior trying to fear people. Like, specifically in hardcore, when people play a warrior, you stay away from all the weapons that put dots or bleeds on them. And even the warrior talents, you don't take deep wins in hardcore if you're really trying to live, because you don't want your fears to break if you ever have to fear yourself out of a shitty situation. A lot of people play a warrior build without deep wins. So, while leveling, and not only is it annoying, but also those items in general just suck ass. There's a lack of diversity, I felt like, in the raid items. Like, there's like one melee DPS necklace. There's only one single one-handed sword from raid. Or there's another one for horde from a quest that Alliance didn't get. So, there's just one single item I'm waiting for over and over and over. A lot of cases you don't really get like a weaker option while you wait for the better one. You just get nothing. Had no necklace for so long. And then just in general, I didn't really find the loot to be that exciting. Like, oh, I need that piece. None of the items were that cool to me. No really cool effects. Just pretty meh. So I have to give the gearing a mid-tier for sure. Now here's a spicy one. The botting. Man, the botting was I'll just put it here now. The botting was a problem in phase 1 of Season of Discovery. Like, a big problem. Like, I want to say when I was out in the open world, like, I mean, it was extremely rampant. Like, 1 out of 4 players I was seeing in some zones was a hunter with a pet with a non-English name that if you came up and, backstabbed them a couple times, they literally would not even target you. Would just keep on trying to skin the mob they're on. Like, it was really bad. Like, at one point I came upon a group of bots. It was like 3 hunters that were killing Naga down by South Shore, and me and my girlfriend were just camping these 3 bots for I don't know, like 90 minutes. We killed them 100 times trying to get them to fuck off. And the hunters had the scorpion pets, and it was early in the season, so literally sometimes I would come out. I was playing Mutilate at the time. I'd come out, mutilate them once, twice, they fall over, but their pet instantly targeted me. Auto attacked me twice, got 2 stacks of the scorpion poison on me, and then I would just die to a bot that never targeted me once. It was a horrible feeling. Like, I'm losing to bots because their pet can 2-shot me. But I'm somewhat hopeful for the future because they say they have new tech for getting the bots that are going to eradicate them way easier. But we'll see what that does. I'm not too hopeful they'll be able to do anything because they never have. So, but yeah, it's a huge problem. Worst I've ever seen, to be honest. The bugs, it's not the most buggy game I've ever played. But it definitely has some annoying issues. I'll say the bugs are kind of bad. Like, item compare is still glitched. This was a problem that randomly showed up when they released official hardcore, where if you have an item with randomly generated stats, it just doesn't recognize them, which is, I don't know why they haven't fixed that still. Shadow Strike was wonky. You would desync and start rubber banding everywhere if someone had been using Shadow Strike. Damage numbers were randomly going off on dead mobs. My pistol shot on my rogue was just firing randomly across the map at dead mobs long after I had used it. Warlocks just drain life people still while they're dead. I'm pretty sure they just coded the new drain life as a dot, just a regular dot. So just keeps on draining them while you're dead. Would be nice if the mobs that are labeled dead were actually dead instead of full HP. I don't know why they couldn't manage that. There's wrong tooltips all over. Mana oil was wrong, confusing people. Saber slash was completely wrong. The wording, like on Temporal Beacon, just very bad wording. The supplicants for priests weren't working. Obviously, the damage with the hunter pets wasn't the most buggy shitfest, but it definitely, the bugs that were there definitely made the game feel more amateur, not professionally done. Took away from it for me. Phase 1 for me definitely felt really unpolished, and the bugs were a big contribution to that. Oh man, Battle for Ashenvale. This is a big topic. Okay, Battle for Ashenvale. Man, I went in blind. Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. I was really excited. Finally pulled up to the new PvP event. There was still some percent to go. I was standing in Astronar, because that's what I expected the battleground to start, from the respective faction, main hubs. My wife got up to pee, and then it started, ended within 10 seconds. Only one person in chat. There's only one dude in chat that said, looking for more, before it just starts and ended. They didn't get to interact at all. It made me really sad, to be honest, when it happened. I was super bummed out. I don't understand how that gets shipped to the game. Like, they didn't test it at all to realize you can just Zerg the boss in 5 fucking seconds. 100% Battle for Ashenvale was a PvE event, not a PvP event. And even after all the changes they made, they've made many, many changes trying to fix that mess. Still a PvE event. I saw a comment in Wowhead saying they got revered with Warsong with 20 lifetime honorable kills. And it was all from one time when the factions actually had an altercation in Ashenvale. One single time, but actually was a PvP event for them. There were so many problems that they tried to fix, and in many cases just made worse. My girlfriend was in a winning Ashenvale one time, there to get her rep, and then right before they're about to win, just half the people in her group just got phased off that layer, and then now they're on a layer where the event was already completed at 0%, so everyone just got screwed over. Like, what a horrible experience to go through when you're like dedicating your valuable free time to something. I mean, there were even times when I was standing next to people summoning on my own layer. I see them, they need help summoning, they invite you to the group, and then when they invite you, even though you're just both on the same phase, them inviting you phases you away from them to a new layer, and then you can't help them summon or see each other anymore. It's so annoying. I absolutely hate the way layering works. There's so much work put into the logistics of getting Ashenvale to work correctly. But even working at its best, when you get down to it, no matter what, it's just a dog shit booty event that they came up with. Would have been way better if it just ran on a 3-hour clock instead of this percent building up bullshit, removing all this layering bullshit. Their fix that they made, towards the end finally, where it was on a timer of sorts. It wasn't a regular timer, it was a hidden timer, so the event, I showed up to the zone, the event got to 99% to 99% on both sides, and then we had to wait for over an hour with zero indication of when it would actually begin. Just so many people there confused when it's starting. Invite quick, just waiting for an hour, wasting everyone's time. At least let it go to 100%, and then say the requirements are complete and then put a timer at the top for when the battle will begin. Just so annoying, wasting everyone's time. And, you know, here's a hot take. Brace yourself for this one. Large-scale PvP is just not fun. Most of the time, like, if you're thinking, what? It's so fun, ask yourself first if you are a boomkin. First, ask yourself an Ashran on the road fights if you were a hunter casting barrage or a boomkin or Death Knight gripping people in. Because, man, if you were that warrior or that rogue, it was zero impact. You're just standing there, dying, doing nothing. PvP is fun when you feel powerful, like what you're doing has an impact. When you stop that flag from being capped or cap that flag yourself, it's not fun when you feel powerless. PvP is fun when you feel powerful, not powerless. And so many classes, and when it comes to large-scale PvP, are just powerless. Yes, it's cool seeing that many players bunched up doing something. I agree. Seeing the hordes of players is cool. But, you know, small-scale fights are what's fun. 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s. Yeah, when you gank someone in the open world in 1v1 and they just flop over, you feel kind of bad if they didn't fight back. Man, if you kill someone that started it, that opened up on you first after you rezzed, there's no better feeling in the game. Well, actually, killing someone who was camped you now or in the past is actually a better feeling. If you think you found a solo player off to the side to fight during the Ashenvale event, you're wrong. You just found a momentary gap with one player in a train of 500, and are about to repeatedly corpse walk and get camped over and over. You know, in my opinion, PvP should be opted into by people with competitive drive that want to style on other people. Every top PvPer in Arena is a super competitive person. I don't think you should be obligated to PvP for the best items in the game. And when you're obligated to PvP, that's how you end up with the Alterac Valley games where one team's meta becomes to lose on purpose. Even the winning team has 5 people fishing, 15 robots taking the exact same path, and 20 people AFK on the hill before the last boss. And for all these reasons, and you know, mainly because the PvP event had no PvP, it's definitely getting in the red deep. All the way deep. Problem tier. Just horrible. Super poorly executed. Not fun at all. Let's talk about the PvP in general, you know, outside of Ashenvale. I did have fun in spontaneous, even playing field, you know, world PvP right around launch. Had a lot of fun, actually. But man, that went away fast. Especially when leveling alts. Man, the gankers now are mega twinks. With raid gear, their new OP abilities. And it feels like fresh 60 versus full next Rammus gear when you're leveling. I mean, like, the epic staff from BFD is better than Staff of Jordan, which was previously a level 60 pre-raid BIS option on a level 25. Like, the last handful of times I've logged on to level a character, I've been repeatedly spawn camped by max levels until I take res sickness and just log off. It's insanely unfun. You have no shot versus them compared to the past where you could outskill an orange enemy. Nathan and Rogue Angles. I do remember your names, you motherfuckers. I'm sick of my fan base on you too. Seriously though, I've never complained about World PvP in any other WoW iteration. In fact, it's usually my favorite part. Phase 2 of 2019 Classic was the best phase for me. This has been absolutely painful. Now, Warsong Gulch. Man, Warsong Gulch has been my favorite battleground since I was a kid. But it's just straight up not fun. Not from boredom, but straight up rage-inducing gameplay. This is coming from someone who's done Warsong 1,000 times. This is the worst time I've ever had. You're always face pre-mades, and then I wasn't joining a pre-made. Your team will run mid, their warrior will charge in, and then you'll see 3 penances fly out from their 3 disc priests that are stacked on him. And then your team loses the first fight mid, and then they just AFK. They stop spawning in graveyard after 1 death. Every time. I played almost 10-minute games where we got 1 single honorable kill, and I just lose with plus 11 honor to show for it when I was trying to rank. I'm sure if you're playing the classes that are extremely OP, you had tons of fun playing the Warsong Gulch, but all the people you're harassing did not have any fun. I fought hunters where I CC'd the hunter the entire time. They never got a hit off themselves, and I just died to their pet. Couldn't 1v1 it. Man, even on my rogue when I was stealthed with no hunter's mark on me, and the OP hunter pet will still chase you through stealth 80 yards and melee you out as long as it was commanded to attack you at some point. You can vanish, whatever, that pet will just fucking run at you and get you out of stealth and kill you. So annoying. I'm sure you disc priests had some fun too. I mean, they really should just do a queue system where pre-mades get versus other pre-mades. Like, they always don't make these changes to how queuing works in World of Warcraft since always, because they think it'll, hurt the queue times. But I don't know, maybe if the games were fun and balanced, then more people would play them in the first place, and so the queue times would balance out, and boomkins can just throw nukes at you all into the cast while walking away from you, never having to cast shit. I mean, Sunfire, feral cats, oh my god. They're cats, so they're faster than you, so you can't catch up to them, and they just max range you and spam you down with Sunfire. You never get to interact at all. It's so annoying and stupid. This one tank shaman just 1v3 three of us easily with infinite mana with some mana shield build he was playing. It's just all absolutely fucked. PvP is going between problems and kind of bad. It's close to being just a straight up problem, but I mean, I'm sure you had a great time if you were playing as mega OP. Okay, the balance. Man, the balance was just not it. I know they said they weren't planning to make it like a super balanced experience. Like, they did that little meme at BlizzCon that was like, nerf warriors? No. Make everyone OP? Yes. Everyone is not OP. I mean, like, look at the raid charts, the raid logs recently. DPS priest, you're fucking half of warriors. Frost mage, you're half of warriors. Elite shaman, enhancement shaman, balance druid, you're all garbage. You're all absolutely garbage. And the funny thing is, DPS priests, shamans, these are classes that have had buffs of some of their main abilities by 200%. And they're still down here. First of all, buffs by 200% are like, you never see that in retail. That's insane how much they missed the mark. It took day one, literally day one, they nerfed explosive shot for hunters by 1 trillion%. Like, you'll never logged on to hunters and pressed explosive shot one time before making the game live. Like, they gotta invest in importing a target dummy and fucking firing up details or whatever they have in their office. Because, I mean, it's bad. I'm gonna have to give the balance a problem. It's definitely a problem area. It's not like, oh, this is a fun sandbox experience with this crazy balance. It's just like, this is just bad. Like, this was not designed well. The forethought into this design was minimal. And they aren't properly testing stuff on purpose and giving players a bad experience. These phases are going by so fast that by the time they've fixed half the stuff that is making it so shit, then the phase is almost over, and so many people have lost interest and aren't invested in their characters any longer. I mean, the amount of actual, like, whoa, look at this new discovery is so minimal. They should just fucking test the game with a PTR if they're not going to do it themselves. Let's talk about hunter design specifically, because I mean, it's a big topic. Probably the craziest class on the patch. First of all, there's so many whalehead comments complaining about hunters every time something happens to them. They're still broken. They act like being here right as the fourth class is such a horrible place to be. You're not a fucking shadow priest. You bring things. Your pet tanks Kelris. You have raid buffs. You're disgusting in PvP. Stop complaining so much. Man, I've seen so many comments. Well, another hunter nerf. Guess I'm quitting back to retail. You're good, bro. You're good. I mean, the scorpion pet thing. Let me just drag in an image for hunters. The scorpion pet thing for hunters was one of the most egregious things in terms of balance I've ever seen in World of Warcraft. And it took them so long to fix it. They were like half fixing it. It was still out of line. Still to this day, hunter pets are too broken. But I will say, I will say something nice about SOD was we did see hunters using more diverse amounts of pets than ever before. I mean, really, they're just using the wind serpent or the scorpion, but they didn't use those before, and they can use wyverns now too. So in the future, there's hope that they could find more ways to make many of the pet appearances viable without breaking the game. That'd be great. As much as I love Broken Tooth is my boy. Everyone not being a Broken Tooth user would be kind of cool. That being said, hunter design, that was a problem. That was a big problem. Rogue design specifically. Get that high quality image in there. And Rogue was my main through phase 1, so I'll have the most input on this class. Would love to hear y'all's input on all the classes below. But, I mean, there's definitely some good things, definitely some bad things. Obviously, they were really strong, which is a good thing for me, but not the important part. Let me actually fire up the game and show you something about rogues that I really enjoy. Alright, here we are. Don't worry about my UI, just don't. So, like, many times during leveling and farming and stuff with my girlfriend, yeah, she would die, she'd be corpse walking. The pack of elites we fought were still alive, and maybe just one of them. It's gonna fuck me up, two-shot me. You know, because we were pet tanking it before or whatever. And I found myself in a situation where I was like stalling, waiting for her. And we'll just use this random mob as an example. But, you know, like the elite ogres in the north of Logmadon. You would, this guy trying to fuck with me? You'd be able to just indefinitely kite things while I was waiting. You hit a quick draw, get slowed for a while. You know, if it ever catches up to you, you can gouge. Okay, got blocked, but if that didn't happen, slow it again, get it off you. Wait again for gouge. And you get the gouge off, you can bandage while you wait, you go in for a while, evasion, DPS, slow him again. You know, wait out the slow. As soon as the slow is done, you can stun him. As soon as the stun's over, you can slow him again. Like, this is kind of cool. I'm almost a hunter. I need also just kite with your gun this whole time doing damage. Kind of this cool, I'm almost a hunter on my rogue gameplay. Yeah. I mean, I did find that pretty fun. I enjoy role-playing as a tiny gnome pirate. You know, the half melee, half ranged playstyle I showed is enjoyable. I think it would be a lot of fun in hardcore, taking on dangerous elites like that. But I will say that the animation of quick draw being weapon speed feels clunky and annoying. Feels way worse than the ability from retail, which is pretty much is a copy of pistol shot. Feels way worse. I just wish it went off normally like a regular global. Man. Gouge. Gouge is just dead. It's so annoying. Like, Saber Slash is like, which, you know, instantly breaks your gouges. It's gonna instantly break your blinds when you get blind in the next phase. If you're not taking Saber Slash, then you're taking the Assassination Rogue build with poisons, and then your poisons are proccing on your gouge, and your poisons are proccing on your sap. Even when I know I'm not getting a melee in, you know, sap is still proccing deadly poison. When I was soloing some dungeons, and then trying to sap a mob, and then it was proccing deadly poison, it was getting me killed all the time. And then also with the, you know, the Bis daggers having a long poison on them from a proc, you always have a bleed or a poison on an enemy that you can't control. And man, it makes it so annoying to use gouge, which before, you know, separated good rogues and bad rogues. Like, gouge is one of the most fun and, you know, one of the coolest abilities to finesse people with. And you can't gouge bandage anymore while leveling. You can't gouge and get behind them for backstab because they're bleeding. And so many times when me and my girlfriend were trying to solo the Dark Iron Dwarves up in North Logmadon, so many times she was grabbing aggro. I was trying to gouge the mob off her to save her life. The gouge lasts 1 millisecond, gets broken, and then she dies. I can't peel for her with the gouge. It's become like basically an interrupt, like a split-second stun before the next damage distance batches in. Like 95% of the situations I want to gouge, I look and see that the button is essentially disabled. You know, I would really love if there was a rune or, you know, one of those new skill book things they're adding where you can make it so your gouge and your blind or whatever, your sap, what have you, clear your damage over times off the target from just you. You know, kind of like the glyph does later in World of Warcraft. And the second I read Saber Slash, I'm like, wow, that's going to be annoying as a rogue, having a bleed you can't control on them. And turns out I was right. It's so fucking annoying. And you might think rogues already have bleeds and poisons. That's what they're known for. But you didn't really use deadly poison before. And, Rupture or Garrote is a thing that you very much get the option into choosing when you use them at just the right time. It's not some passive thing that happens. You can say, oh, just don't use the runes that are annoying you, but, I want to use the ones that are the best, and those are the ones that do the most damage. Now, Tank Rogue. Man, Tank Rogue is such a bad design. It is just not fun at all. Like, as a tank in World of Warcraft, you swap targets constantly. It's so hard to keep aggro on everything unless you're tabbing and taunting things. You grab an aggro on everything. You don't have an AoE ability. You're targeting things, you're getting aggro. And, with Classic Rogue, that means you're losing your combo points every time. It's impossible to grab aggro on everything without, most of the time I'm using a finisher. It's on like 1 to 2, sometimes 3 combo points. Dream of getting to 5 unless you're, doing a boss. Unless you're like fighting a single boss. The design is not that bad of a tank for raid, but in dungeons it's just so unfun. Yes, we now know they're adding a book where you can press a button that saves your combo points on one target and then you transfer them to another. I mean, that just sounds annoying with how often you have to swap. Yes, that'll be better, but would it be even better if it just happened, in an automated way like it does later in World of Warcraft? I mean, as far as the design of Tank Rogue goes, I feel like they absolutely just need that. Even if you're on one target and you want to taunt an ARF target, you can't even use mouse over T's, like without targeting it. You can't use mouse overs without it making you lose your combo points. And then, Blade Dance, you pretty much, what it comes down to is you basically couldn't refresh Blade Dance. And it took me like 60 seconds of tanking on Rogue to be like, wow, Blade Dance, I can never refresh it. This is so annoying. Why is it built like this? Why is it not a flat % of parry so that you can refresh it? And, they fixed it after a few weeks, but it took 1 minute of playing the class to be like, this is so awful. How? Did not a single person that had any idea what they were doing, like, try the Tank Rogue before they added it? The design is just not good. And, that's just ignoring the fact that the flavor is not good either of being a tank. It would be better if they give them, like, the buckler offhand shield usage, like there was in WoW Beta, but no. Another thing about Saber Slash is that you want to get your bleeds rolling out on targets, so you have to just dump all your energy as soon as you get it. So this gameplay of pooling your energy is now not as effective because you had all that time where your bleed wasn't stacked up on them. So it's just spamming out all your energy as fast as you can all the time. I want to do this gameplay in Phase 1 of, multi-bleeding the targets. You couldn't do that either without losing all your combo points on the target. It's like they just add shit without playing it to see how it feels, or someone that actually knows enough about the game to understand why things are bad. Like, it reminds me of Retail, the Hunter Legendary Bow they put in Dragonflight. So you have a bleed that doesn't stack, so as a hunter, there's multiple targets, you want to keep putting the bleeds on different targets so you spread the bleed. But at the same time, the legendary bow that they made, for Beast Mastery hunters increases your attack speed the longer you're attacking one enemy. So if you're targeting other mobs to multi-dot, you're losing the entire passive of your new legendary bow. Meaning, if hunters were min-maxing, they had to all start using mouse overs for their bleeds, which is really annoying sometimes depending on how your plates are set up, how easy it is on a big stack of mobs to actually get the mouse over on the right one. Like, there's a legendary bow made specifically and only for hunters. It's specifically for Beast Mastery Hunter, and then, one of the main abilities, it's completely counter to the design of the item made just for them. It's like it was made with no deeper thought beyond, what if we added this? That's how I feel about a lot of things in Season of Discovery. But yeah, it's not a problem, but I have quite a lot to complain about, so put it in kind of bad. I don't know. I have more fun with regular Classic Rogue so far. Oh yeah, mark my words. Mutilate Rogue next phase, gonna be absolutely nasty, disgusting. Watch your back. Mark my words. Let's talk a little bit about mages. Get some more high-res imagery into here. Mages are one-pulling almost 200 level 20 elites as level 25s in Wailing Caverns, which is cool in some ways, but it's kind of just a taste of what's to come. I feel like huge problems are going to come from this mage design. Am I a fan of AoE grinding, pulling, soloing dungeons as mages? Yes, 100%. It's so much fun to do. If you've never been the mage actually doing it, try it out. In actual classic, it's super fun. But you know, that gameplay, the mage AoE farming before is this gameplay of never let the mobs touching you, perfect kiting, perfect movement. And with this self-healing, the mages are just like running there, face tank it, blast them, pow pow pow. Mages are about to be fucking soloing trash in Molten Core or some shit. Like, it's just disgusting. And then healing mage, man, in terms of flavor, healing mage just still isn't hitting for me, still feels weird. Kind of seems like, to me, if they wanted to make a DPS caster a healer, I feel like Warlock made more sense. A lot of people hear Warlock healer and they instantly think, no, that wouldn't work because, you know, they kind of think of them as evil and dark, and healing is kind of not like that. But, you know, even though Warlocks have kind of this evil vibe, they are, you know, on your team, helping you, helping one of the factions, helping their party. Like, maybe they're evil to their opponents, but, you know, they have friends too. And they already play with life, with all their siphoning abilities. They're already a support class in so many ways. Like, they're already off tank with their pets. You know, they have blood packs, soul stones, fire stones, spell stones, could summon players, put curses on enemies that help everyone. You give them a soul well for a healer warlock, and then, you know, they would talent into improved hellstones to make their soul well better. Their healing could have been funneling their own life into their party members, and then meanwhile, like, they have a lifesteal going on from their dots or their pet, which give them more of their own life back to funnel more into their party. There could have been like an improved succubus where she enchants the party with like AoE lifesteal on their attacks, and then her whip attacks are giving lifesteal back to the warlock, you know. They could have dropped a big like AoE ground zone that's siphoning all the health and the mobs to their own party members in the zone. Transferring mob health into their party health would have worked well, I think. And their big single target healing CDs could have required soul shards, so the warlock has to stay offensive and keep farming, you know, their shards throughout the dungeon. They could have had the Voidwalker sacrifice shield have like a rune where Voidwalker sac spreads on the whole party. Probably a reduced effectiveness because that shield is so fucking big. They could have improved the drained mana more so they could play with their own mana more. They could have given healer warlocks soulstone B-res in combat like it works in retail. Could have used improved soulstone with that, where they res with more HP and mana. They could have made their firestones and their spellstones actually worth using, you know, improved talents for that. Maybe one they can trade people the offhand for healing, like a heal stone. They could be throwing Curse of Weakness, Curse of Tongues on casters and shit, so the tank's taking less damage. You talent into those improved curses. They could be putting Shadow Ward on their teammates, you know, all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying I want healer warlocks, but to me, if they had to pick, if I was designing it and I had to pick making mage a healer or making a warlock a healer, I feel like warlock made a lot more sense. You have to give the mage design a resounding middual. My friend that mains mage has also not really been enjoying his time with mage. Warrior design, the big old warriors. The Chads. So most of the time when I'm playing World of Warcraft, I'm maining a warrior. It's my favorite WoW class of all time, even in Classic. I thought playing my warrior was extremely miserable in Season of Discovery. I hated it and I quit. One of my guildies leveled a warrior. He was raiding with us on his warrior. He quit. Just left us without a main tank because warrior was so unfun. My brother leveled a warrior. He felt the same way. It was just pretty miserable. Would love to hear y'all's opinion on warrior. I feel like maybe it's fun if you were very geared, but getting there is just actual torture. The runes are not fun. The mobs are hitting way harder. It's just, I feel like warriors, although they're broken, highest DPS, were not actually made more fun to play at all. I'm to give them a kind of bad. But rather they left me Sunder Armor spamming. Give them Bladestorm if you want to have some fun. Last thing I'm going to rank here really is the professions. Let's get that in there. To me, it felt like, okay, well, I liked the 150 profession cap instead of 225 like it would have been normally. Like that was a good decision. Like how they added some other incentives so far to play professions other than engineering, because you know how it be in Classic. And with the epic items they made for crafting. Hope they go further with that in the future. But I gotta say, in terms of like actual content for the new professions, it felt extremely limited. Like, honestly, nothing really different besides the one item you can make. I'm gonna have to give, I mean, it's kind of just a nothing burger almost. wish they added a lot more profession content. I have to give the SOD professions like between mid and okay. Okay, if you look here, we have this pretty nice line erring towards the bad side of how I feel about Season of Discovery. Weighted towards this side, for sure. I'll rank the entire game as a whole when I'm done. We talk real quick about a couple of my wishes for Phase 2. They said no dual spec in Phase 2, which I think is just disappointing. Honestly, they should have just given us dual spec basically for free at level 10. I mean, not in actual Classic, but this is a patch. I mean, this is a season about experimentation. You know, plus there's more classes filling multiple roles. You know, it would make grouping faster for sure. A lot of people that are playing the classes that have these new roles in their spec are just still not playing them. Like when I'm pugging, finding a tank always takes almost an hour. Finding healers takes almost the same amount of time. I get 6 DPS instantly, 6 or 7 DPS instantly, and then wait all day for a tank and some healers. It's not any better than it was before, even with all these new specs. If you're a DPS warlock and you had a dual spec setup for tank warlock and you were really looking for a group, it would be way easier to swap if you could just have dual spec. I really hope they reconsider adding this in Phase 2. I'm really not sure why they haven't. Feels like in some ways they're treating, you know, Classic with reverence about, oh, we can't change this, it's not Classic. But, you know, they're down to just shit on half of the other stuff. I don't understand where they draw the line of where they are reverent about stuff and where they are just saying fuck it. So I say you've already fucked it, just keep saying fuck it. Put in dual spec. I wish they would have added like quality of life improvements, like quest log size increasing would be awesome. 20 quests, always hated it. I wish like when you went to a trainer that your future spells you can unlock in the trainer UI were there. That would be great. Wish they were adding new stuff for the holidays. Like it would have been nice if during the Christmas season, if there was a new Season of Discovery only gift under the tree from Santa. Sorry, from Great Father Winter. You know, new Season of Discovery specific things for holidays would be awesome. I would love to see quality of life runes, not share slots with like the best DPS runes. Like, I think they should take slots and just make them all quality of life or all mobility options. So you're never competing with the ease of playing your class with having to take the thing for the max damage. I think like the bracers would be a great target for that. Or the necklace. I hope in Phase 2 the GDKP ban is effective because I find GDKP cringe personally. If you like it, I definitely see your perspective. Earned in all that gold, whatever. If you didn't gold buy, you earned the gold, fine. But I don't feel it's good for the game as a whole. Definitely not. You know how many times in TBC or Wrath I was trying to join groups and then, you know, they invite me after I whispered for so long trying to find someone and they're like, oh, you didn't realize this is GDKP caked. People joining my group that I was forming, like, oh, this isn't GDKP. Leave the group. Like, pugging culture has gone way down. And honestly, pugging stuff was kind of how the game was designed to be made in the first place, but anyways. And you know, I am actually excited for Phase 2. Despite how I tend towards negative with Phase 1, you know, what WoW launch isn't enjoyable for a week, so hopefully it'll be better than Phase 1. But if you missed Phase 1, I don't think you really missed anything, so don't worry about that. Alright, now I'm going to kind of really go in on the game with my final thoughts. I feel like nothing is clean, well put together, smartly designed. It just feels thrown together. If I had to sum up my thoughts of SOD in one phrase, it'd be like, feels thrown together, not put together. Because made by amateurs, like hobbyist kids and not professionals. Like it has this private server energy. Just definitely feels thrown together. I'm just not sure why they rushed this out when Classic players were still eating with Hardcore. Like, Hardcore was still, people were still having fun, still had stuff to do. 10.2 and Dragonflight just dropped. ICC had just dropped pretty recently. Like, I had like 2 weeks to enjoy my Hunter in retail because they were actually OP for a bit before they released this. I don't know, they just rushed it out for their Q4 performance. They love doing that shit, but man, they really should have let it cook a little bit longer, in my opinion. Let me actually find this poll from YouTube I saw. Here it is. Like, they polled their YouTube community. 119,000 people answered. And 40% said they're playing live right now, SOD. 46% Dragonflight. So almost half of their community was interested in SOD, just as much as they're interested in Dragonflight. But I don't know, it feels like this is their flagship title, and this gets almost no money sent to it, it feels like. It feels like just because you have to pay to play Dragonflight, you know, they get $1 jillion. And then Classic, which has just as much intrigue, and you have to pay a subscription for anyways, gets this like small team of rinky-dinky little rascals trying to throw together whatever they can, trying to scrum up any resources they can find. I mean, if you ask me, they should just go in on a Classic expansion, like actually go in on Classic Plus. Here's when World of Warcraft is addicting. You're addicted to World of Warcraft when you constantly know what you want to do. The directive is clear, like, I'm going to log on, I'm going to get that XP. I'm going to log on, I'm going to get that pre-base. I'm going to log on, I'm going to get that mount, you know? When you log on and you have to think, what do I want to do today? Is there anything I can find to do at all? And you just sit there in town, like, and doing laps around the main town, like, it loses its addictiveness fast. A Classic is this amazing game that Classic Andes absolutely think is perfect almost. But its biggest weak point, we can all agree, is that at level 60, there's not enough to do. You just raid log. Like, people wish they could play it more. They don't need you to change the rules of the game. They don't need new gimmicks with the rune system. Just add more ways to play the game that everyone already loved. That's the biggest appeal of Classic Plus, I feel like. Giving people more things to do outside of raid logging in the game they already love. Season of Discovery Phase 1 was just a fast track to getting into raid logging faster than ever. It could take you a week easily in Season of Discovery to start getting into raid logging, but like less content than ever. It's like they've fallen in the trap of retail, who, instead of building this big MMO in this world you want to be in, they have diluted the game down into these 3 pillars of content that are these, you know, 3 different mini games basically between Mythic Plus, raiding, and PvP. And Classic doesn't even have Mythic Plus, so now they're falling into this 2-pillar trap where there's raiding and there's PvP. I can think of so many activities outside of raiding, PvP, and dungeons they can add to WoW. But no, they're just adding a new PvP event, they're reworking into a new raid, and that's that. That's what you get. I know it's an experimental seasonal game mode that isn't Classic Plus, but they're using it as a playground to test for Classic Plus itself. You know, my ultimate dream in life being a well-done Classic Plus, and I feel like they're testing the wrong things, man. Even if you like Season of Discovery and you're like, I've been having fun, fuck you. I mean, valid. I'm happy for you. But to me, it still feels like a failure of an idea. Like, it's like we're eating this trash food and it seems so good because we're starving. You know, it's hitting the spot, but it could have been great food. It could have been prepared by an actual chef. They could have balanced the acidity, the fat, the sweet, and the savory. Like, we don't even know what we could be having. We're just having the garbage because we're starving. SOD as a whole, so far, Phase 1, I'm going to have to give a resounding mid. Definition of mid. Do I have hope for the future? Could it be okay? Could it be good job, Blizz? Probably don't expect it to be good job, Blizz, but it could be okay. So, stay hopeful. But goddamn, Phase 1 was mid. Sorry. If you really loved it, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Pretty much anyone I've ever talked to or heard from hasn't had that much fun with it. But, you know, we stay hopeful. We stay hungry. We devour. All right, well, bye-bye. Have a nice sleep.